welcome everyone. We're back in the Finance Committee meeting room. We just concluded a meeting jointly with the Board of Selectmen, where we received a new Article 2, spelling out some significant layoffs associated with accepting the assessment from the school district. So there was a good discussion about jointly moving forward, hopefully with both a revised assessment from the district and some cooperation from town departments to try to get not only through this budget cycle, but we really, really need to get back into a sustainable budget course. So we've talked about this at our meeting before too. We talked about the override, the scenario for an override. It appears nothing's off the table at this point. Unfortunately, we're 4 meetings away, not counting tonight, from having to complete all this business, and it'll probably include waiting for an additional revised assessment, hopefully from the school district. So, anybody want to bring anything into before I go over the rest of the agenda from our meeting with the Board of Selectmen? Kathleen.
Really to add to information, I watched the Hanson's March 12th Select Board meeting where they had a presentation by John Madden, who was trying to show them how to have a 5-year sustainable budget. And he recommended that the town of Hanson have a $5 million operating override, essentially raise the levy limit by $5 million. Don't spend it all, but be allowed to spend up to $5 million more. And it had nothing to do with the school assessment. Kevin Sullivan, who's the FinCom chairman, talked about with the schools, without the schools, 5% versus the 11% or whatever the heck they've got. Hanson's in the same boat as we are. They need an override to close their budget. I believe that Mary Beth at the school committee meeting last Wednesday said she was going to use $500,000 in free cash to close Whitman's budget. I thought, here we go again, right back where we were last April. So both towns are in trouble, and the school, it was just such an arrogant move with only one person asking questions. Can you look at this? Why that? This class size is unsustainable. And the other 9 just sat there like she was speaking.
This is it. This is what you're going to get.
Just trust the administration. We paid them the money to do the... And I don't dislike Jeff. I think he works really hard. But this was just such an arrogant move. After being told the towns can't afford it, hey, let's just go for this. So, hearing these cuts from Mary Beth, potential cuts to balance the budget, I say we go backwards. We support the town budgets and move to reject the school request and send it back for further negotiation. And that requires town council to say, if you do that, that's a bad idea, or it's a good idea. It's an option. But
well, I think we're skipping a step. We gotta at least give them an opportunity to post another meeting and discuss having an alternative assessment to the town.
Absolutely.
Right?
But we're playing hardball here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have always said that it's no different from when we meet with department heads. They give us their wish list. I mean, there's no difference here with this school assessment, right? They're giving us the hardball. Here it is, and now, all right, let's go. Let's have a conversation. Mm-hmm. So, in my mind, when I talked about a number with Mary Beth, that the likelihood of a second vote for the assessment will probably take place at some point. But here we go again with the last-minute recommendations for the Finance Committee. It's not in the best fiscal interest of the town for us to be spending 8 months meeting with department heads to get to 4 weeks before town meeting, and now we're going to cram in, all of this information and try to make a responsible distribution of the town's limited resources. It's not fiscally responsible, but it's the way we unfortunately have to go at this point. So, yeah. Mike.
So just to tell you your part, right? The 5-year plan is, if the 5-year plan is to raise 10 to 11% each year, whether it's this year or next year or the year after, this is going to happen. At some point, we cannot sustain having a 2.5% growth in our revenue and being asked for effectively 4 times that every single year is not sustainable.
Right.
There has to be another look at that to say, all right, what do we do if we can't change our revenue streaming, which it's not really, we're not a city that can do that, right? We don't have that aspect. We don't have huge business here. We're pretty much commercial almost entirely for our revenue stream other than residential. There's a little bit of industrial here. There has to be a wider perspective, and this is where I think the planning committee has to come into play and say, what are we going to do? How are we going to get it? One last thought is, there's been a lot of talk about money from the state, money from the feds, etc. And I've given this a lot of thought in the last week or so, but that we don't know what that money's going to be. And I think that there's another concern, because that seems to always be the magic. We're going to fix the budget because we'll get money from these other places. They'll come in. Well, what if they don't come in like they didn't this year? I look at it as, in my work, I have a package that I receive for working myself to death. And there's a bonus that's figured into that. I never count that in my salary. That's a bonus that could go away tomorrow, right? So I'm not going to put my car payments or my mortgage or anything else based upon that. We kind of need to look at these other revenue streams from state and federal. I feel like we need to kind of look at that the same way. That's bonus money. That's where we build buildings and buy cars, but we don't fund ongoing payments. And I'll leave it at that.
Some of these aid is meant for ongoing payments. Chapter 90,
Understood.
Chapter 70 are intended for ongoing payments, and that's where you build a portfolio, a financial portfolio, and you follow how the aid is, and you create a percentage of stability to handle what you're doing. There's a way to handle these things. There are different perspectives, such some people believe in very, very small government, which doesn't provide the supports. That means if we go that route, we're not going to be able to provide those tax discounts for the seniors that we have now. We're not going to be able to provide those. We have to consider how we use those. The 2.5% is not sustainable, correct, because in many ways, we have not used those government supports really well. Now, there's another consistent one, and I'll give an example here. I went around to all the other towns, and I think it's 250, almost 50 million Abington gets for fish and wildlife from the state for their taxes. And I went and I said, okay, is this big pieces of land? What kind of land is it? And some of it's just like half an acre here. There's many different spots.
Portion of the stuff.
Little parts of what now we just accepted. We said, hey, over near Hog Memorial, we're not going to take in this revenue from you. We're going to accept these wetlands in the town. I think if you remember, we stood up and said we really should be accepting wetlands. We'll take this in. We'll take this off our books. And now I believe we're pumping water out of it. That same land could have been given to the state and would be receiving aid. So these are receiving taxation from the aid. So these are the sort of mistakes we're making. And there's a lot of them. I can list them. So I know that there was a letter sent out that said, you can't do anything about this. That's untrue. If you go down those lists, even when we build, I'll be right with you, Al. Even when we build, we could be building in a way that brings in aid and a radical acceptance is, we're in the MBTA. We're getting families, guys. That's radically accept. That's what's going to happen. The buildings, we're going to have to build, or we're not going to get support. And if you think that we can be like Milton, if you think people are wealthy enough to do that, you're welcome to move forward with that sort of ideology. But again, we will not be able to supply the supports for the seniors that we have in place now to do it. It'll shrink our levy. We will not have a good fire department. We will not have a good police department. So some of those are give back to your schools if you build, appropriately. It's the smart growth aid. Now, sometimes that'll disappear, sometimes it won't, but at least you get a chance at a little bit more for something that is already going to be happening.
Right.
So planning.
Okay, Al?
Just to bring up what Mike brought up last week, which is a very good point. 2019, 2020, with the opera funds that we received as a town, we had a big buildup of obviously additional bodies, a lot. Have you asked the town administrator how many bodies have we had 2019? How many people we have now? Because you've got to ask yourself, because the teachers, I can tell you right now, and former Chairman Randy Lamontina made a good point with Simon at one of those meetings we went to, questioning him with regards, I believe, to the opera funds. And we haven't had a plan to realize that it's unsustainable. If you had that many bodies in any business, the first thing that goes is bodies. And there was no plan in place. The growth factor was not there. So it's not going to be a shock, Kathleen, with the schools. I mean, it's like you brought that up last week about the even additional bodies were budgeted for, 2025, is that correct? Additional bodies for the schools?
50.
Well, the school,
40%.
yes, the
Right.
school has not just the ESSER 3. It's not
Right.
just a matter of moving positions being funded by ESSER 3 onto
Right.
the local budget. It's that there are more positions.
Right, and that's it's not
Two
sustainable.
administrators, who are they? I don't know who they are.
Right. That's
Concerning.
That'd be
So, Al, your point is well taken too. Is like
Yeah.
we need to take an inventory.
Yeah.
The same way for our other departments here
Yeah.
in the town to find out, how we're spending differently with the COVID money, because really the COVID money delayed the necessity from our financial consultant,
Yeah.
who made it clear that we needed an override 4 years ago, right? And it was only because of the COVID funds
Right.
that it's delayed. But here we are, we're at the cliff, right? I mean,
right.
Michael.
Again, things that I know we've brought this up at different meetings, but similar to people are vehicles. I think
Yeah.
we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We have no idea how many vehicles there are in the town. There is no one who manages the fleet. So we see purchases of vehicles, whereas maybe, that department doesn't need that vehicle. It could go over to this department rather than buy a new one. I'll go back to something they mentioned in the selectmen board meeting was the idea of maintenance at the center. We talked about it even with the people when they came through here. Is instead of having each department contract with effectively the same business, why aren't we going back and saying not 5 separate contracts, one contract? Now give us a 20% break on that. We're not looking at our town as a total business. We're looking at it as separate businesses within, or departments within the business, and they're not negotiating from a financially strong position with these other external third-party vendors.
A good point. Kathleen.
And I just want to build on what you said, Mike, about not knowing about vehicles, because in theory, the Capital Committee has a list of all of the vehicles owned by the town. The problem is it's not updated. So some of the vehicles have already been identified as surplus. I think the Capital Committee, and it's not to pick on, I'm on it. I think the Capital Committee could play a crucial role in saying we have these vehicles that were purchased in 2020. Not good for the fire chief's purposes. It already has some mileage on it, but somebody in the building department can use this to make his or her rounds. So I think the Capital Committee can be more effective in helping us identify places where we don't have to spend money. Police cruisers, no. You're not going to take a police cruiser and shift that around. But if we could get the 5-year plan that the Capital Committee is supposed to have gotten, and some department heads have been wonderful in helping us generate their 5-year plan, and others are completely non-compliant and can't, because things will change, the price will change. And just say you're not going to get any requests if you don't have a 5-year plan. So, carrot and stick.
Rosemary.
The assumption is that we don't have to look back and make sure that our revenue processes aren't in check. And I think Mary Beth is probably explaining right now, I had a meeting with the assessor today, that there has been a problem. Some buildings that are at least one that was over $3.2 million was disappeared and was not assessed. And there is some, for 2025, there is some question on how we're handling those and the processes in which this happened. This new assessor caught this, and I really want to commend her and her efforts to make sure that we are getting the revenue that we're supposed to. But there are other issues here. I think I mentioned a while back, with new growth, we had the issue. We had the issue also with the net book. We had a choice before the net book to actually go and ask before the updated net book, ask the 504 companies to pay the true assessed values, not just come in and tell us what they wanted to pay and then we paid a 50-50. We had that option. When the net book came in, it set a price, and this year we got assessed $20 million. We were sort of, if it gives a rough estimate of stuff that was already there year after year after year. So let's just also, because I want to really stress this, we're talking about overrides, and it's not just that we need the money, it's also the rate in which we increase. Can people adapt to that rate? If you are planning these things, you're first looking at every way that you can make sure that, you can handle this before you do that. That's all.
As far as if there was an operational override, you're going to meet a lot of resistance. I mean, we haven't even felt the impact of the middle school and or the town built the town barn, and now we haven't even seen anything from the South Shore VOTEC. I mean, there's only so much a townspeople can actually pay in this town, because my taxes have gone up quite a bit since I've been living here, and I'm not concerned about myself, but I'm just concerned about the older people population in this town. And it's not that easy. It's a struggle out there. The economy's not well, and you got a lot of senior citizens in this town on fixed incomes.
I just want to say these are all really good points. We do have a lot of work to do, and it's not just in one direction. There's work to do with respect to revenue. There's work to do with spending. There's work to do with the district.
Planning, zoning, everything. As I sit here, if I can, just jump in, being here. I mean, they're all good points, and it sounds to me like it's like this town is an 8-cylinder car. It's just not firing on all 8 all the time. It's it's sputtering. It's not capturing everything. So there's a lot that, for whatever reason, hasn't been done to the best of people's abilities or skill set or
Streamlining. You need to streamline.
So there's many little things that are going to help, but it's a lot
of everything.
It's a lot of everything.
Kathleen?
I just want to go on the record as a senior citizen as saying that the senior citizens in general are not the group hardest hit by these increases. There are definitely some needy senior citizens, but you have young families who are paying child care costs.
Yeah.
You have what I refer to my daughter's age as middle-aged families whose kids are going off to college. They are under as much, if not more, stress than senior citizens.
Yeah.
My husband and I are nowhere near under the stress as our kids. And they will find they'll get another job if they have to get another job, just as I did when I had 2 kids in college at the same time. But it's not just senior citizens. It's young families, it's middle-aged families. And we have to recognize it's popular to say senior citizens because senior citizens vote. But some of us senior citizens are in pretty good shape, and it's other demographics, as Rosemary would say, who are under significantly more stress than some senior citizens when it comes to these tax increases. They are trying to bridge their budget gaps, and they are hit by these increases as well.
I want to echo what she just said too, which is if you check out any of the real estate sites, Zillow is probably the biggest one, right? They rate towns based upon cost of living and amenities, things. So younger families, young kids, which would of course go into our school system, which helps the whole revenue stream aspect. We're not at the top of the list anymore.
Thank you.
We are way down now on the top on that list, and it's because of it's not so much the services that we offer, although obviously this might change some of that perspective, but it is the cost of living that's making it too much. They could move on the other side of 495. You get a house for $200,000 less than you could pay in Whitman.
Go ahead.
Just to
Elizabeth was there.
Elizabeth, yeah.
I'm not sure if it has to be public forum or not,
No,
but
no.
I will just say the fact that they said that they would close the library
Yeah.
and make cuts at the senior center, I almost wanted to stand up in there just to say, with the population coming in and the needs of the population coming in, the library is going to be the main center for communication. And we've heard it in the past few budget presentations that there's a communication barrier. Well, you know where they go to the library to get help communicating. So between the schools and the libraries, I mean, that's a battle that's going to have to be had, but the library cannot close.
Okay.
The library is open when the school is not. The adults need just as much education as
That's
the
not what I'm
children
going to
do.
say. I don't.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't.
good point.
If we're talking EQV, and we're talking, which nobody's talking about here, is the overall value and of the town, and which will.
Yeah, what Mike was just saying, we can't
Well,
get rid of the little services that we do offer now.
I would hesitate to believe some of this. Like, I would look at, I think we talked about the busing to vocational schools. If it hits a certain range, we can go back. I believe we can go back to the commissioner and take and say, hey, this is too expensive. We can't afford this. And so there is still room here to work.
Yeah.
Pull out of things that
I don't think we're going down that road.
Yeah. Additionally, that's what I'm trying to say is, ultimately, there is
do have to leave the door open, unfortunately.
department here that I can see, including the schools, that have extraordinary budgets. I don't see that, but there's ways in which we can balance those things. One of the things, when I went after Chapter 90 money, one of the things you're supposed to do is utilize that Plymouth County to offset each year. You go for different road grants each year. And like Mike said, even those one-time yearly things can offset that budget. We have never had anything in the current Plymouth County for many, many, many years. So these are the things that... And the capital committee looks to be doing this. Now, if they're trying to do that, if they do that effectively, if we do over, are we going to come back and do an underride? Like, what's the deal here? Because if ultimately we're taking on land that should probably have been going to the state and receiving revenue, so we're losing revenue just to have green space that could be subsidized by the state, if all of these things are happening, then it's going to have an impact of lowering that total ability to pull revenue. And, we can talk about one-time grants in that capacity that you had said. Like, you use a coupon. You might cut the coupons, but you use them only when needed strategically, like a portfolio. We're not even doing that.
All right. I don't want to end the discussion with still a lot to talk about with respect to that subject, but we do need to get reviewing the agenda for tonight's meeting. So we do have budget meetings with Historical Commission in about 3 minutes, and then maybe the Conservation Commission and maybe the Planning Board. I'm almost sure we have the Planning Board. I'm not really sure about Conservation. So old business will cover the subcommittee reports, and then we can continue the discussion about the 25 budget. But let me just say that there's still a lot of things that need to happen before we start making recommendations, right? We'd almost be wasting our time if we looked at this Article 2 that we were just given tonight and start reconsidering some of these drastic cuts. I think would just be an exercise in futility because we're not going down that road, in my mind. We're not going to lose 3 firefighters. We're not going to lose 3 police, and we're not going to close the library. We have to have hope that that's not going to be the case. So, but like I said, it certainly has to be part of the discussion, and it's certainly part of what we have to consider. But we don't have to consider all of that in advance of the time that we need to do it, I guess.
I just have a quick question, Mr. Chairman. Could we ask the Board of Selectmen to get an advisory from Town Council? What if, at town meeting, the FinCom recommendation is to not support the school budget? And then get back and forth in the ping pong match that they talked about back in 2020, which we avoided.
Right.
But if they can't come down in their assessment, I agree. I'm not willing to support that Mary Beth's, not recommendations, but the work that she did to identify. So what happens if we say, you know what, this is the budget we're supporting for all the other departments and school budget, we recommend that you not support it. We
Right.
can't cut it, so.
Well, we've been there before, if you recall, right? We were there at one time. You know, there's certain things that take place on the town hall floor. If the FinCom, but I would think that if the FinCom's not going to recommend the assessment as presented by the school committee, it would be in concert with the Board of Selectmen, I would certainly imagine, right?
Yep.
So before we even entertain a discussion with town council,
Okay.
I think we need to make these steps one at a time. Even though we only have 4 weeks left, we really have to let the process take its course, I think, a little bit.
So, just clarification, you're saying wait to see if they lower the budget on the, at the next
School
meeting?
assessment.
The school assessment in the next meeting,
That would be my hope.
and then if they don't, then reject it.
Then we start going down some of these
Okay.
other roads.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
all I'm saying.
Yep.
Let's hope.
Makes sense.
Hold out hope.
I'm sure they'll watch the video tomorrow, the selectmen's meeting and the meeting we had, so.
Yeah.
Well, there'll definitely be
Procedural
interest.
question.
Yes.
We have to, as a committee, vote on our recommendations as a committee and have that available for the warrants and such. When do we begin that process?
We don't even have a school budget.
Right.
Town meeting.
It would have been nice to be
Well, let me
starting
tell you
soon.
how it went last year, just so you know. We started the process 2 weeks before town meeting. We met Tuesdays and Thursdays for the last 2 weeks in order to finish reviewing every warrant article and every line item within Article 2 and making recommendations. So it's much more difficult if we only have 2 weeks. It's much better if we have 3 weeks, and much better still if we could get, you know, the final Article 2 and start making recommendations and the warrant as well. So, yeah, I mean, time is running out. I agree.
I mean, we could potentially do that using what they've given us, and we make two recommendations. One based upon the as planned, and then the other one based upon what was done there.
Right. Well, I think we're going to do that. I absolutely think we're
Okay.
going to do that.
I think it's
Yeah.
called the contingency budget.
Yeah, we need to have a contingency budget in case.
Contingency decision? That doesn't make sense.
No, it's like
If the
two
ballot
budgets.
box-
If not this,
Yeah.
that, yeah.
It all depends on an override failing at the ballot box. That's when we have a contingency budget. And it's difficult because a lot of times you're doing that in a very short amount of time.
If we do a school override, it's going to fail at the thing. Let's not kid ourselves.
There is no.
I'd be surprised if any.
I think we should stop
I know it's-
using that term. in this
I know,
room.
but if they pitch it and sort of play their theater, it's going to fail. And it's going to, and then we'll be back to this nightmare. So let's.
I think the taxpayers are gonna everybody knows what's going on with our capital projects. I think any override is not gonna be taken, they're not gonna, it's not gonna be approved.
This is what just.
Oh, they're waiting
see
for
you
the
later.
It's just a bad time. We probably should have, probably should have gone for an override after we got the APA funds. Everybody had money in their pocket.
Yeah, well, you know, hindsight's 20/20. They say
Yeah.
too,
We
right?
have the option to just say no to the busing, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
because they've
Right.
separated
Separated.
180.
But that's one position, right? It's really not a solver.
It's well.
181,000.
Then we,
Right.
and then the next one, we have the opportunity to go to the commissioner and talk to him about busing for vocational, the non-regional vocational.
That's less clear than a town meeting.
Okay, let me just interrupt this conversation because we are going to go into a budget meeting with our historical commission. Is that correct?
That is right.
All right. So.
I could say I was something else. but I'm not.
So let me introduce the chair of the. Let me try to find it here on the. You know we have it in Conservation, Planning Board, and Historical, Mary Schnabel, right? Molly, sorry. So Molly, you can certainly come right up to the table, and we'll go around the board and introduce the Finance Committee members
I've
for
been on
you.
the elevator with you,
Lucky you.
but we weren't so sure it was going to work, right?
The elevator.
Oh, the elevator side, you got it.
No.
So Ralph,
Ralph Mitchell.
Hi.
Mike Warner.
Hi.
Kathleen Notina.
Rosemary Conley.
Yes.
Al Caffrey, welcome.
Hi.
Chuck Colby, welcome.
Hi.
And Rick Anderson, thank you for
Am I going
coming.
to have a test on the names?
No.
If you see me somewhere, say hi. You met me.
So again, what we typically do with any department that comes in, and this is a first for this committee, to have boards come
Yeah.
in, and it's great that you took the time out of your meeting and came in. So typically we just let you go ahead, present however you want to present your budget and anything else you want to talk about, and then we'll open it up from the committee to.
Okay. I don't think that there's a heck of a lot to present as far as the financials go because we have a $500 budget that goes through town meeting. However, I think one of the reasons that I was pleased that Rick asked us, in looking at the history of the Historic Commission, we hadn't been reporting to you. And I was on the Historic Commission in Rockland, and we did report on a yearly basis. And the reasoning on it is we're not a society. We are a commission. We are part of the town government. So we should be reporting to you. So I'm new to the town. I've lived here for 6 years, but I lived in Rockland. And so doing the Historic Commission over there, I was in the original starting commission. When they started them, commissions by the state, it was around 1980, 81. And the main reason that they were doing it was to preserve the history of the towns, but the other part of it was to financially support the histories of the towns. So a society will collect Aunt Hattie's hat. We will be the people who will document Aunt Hattie's hat and tell you where to go to find it. If you came to us for research, which a lot of people do, we put it together for you. However, I look at it a little differently than what you've seen in the past. We're money making. And that's why I wanted to report to you, and we just got a $40,000 grant.
Excellent, congratulations.
Yeah. So just last Thursday, it's hot off the presses. So what we did to start with, so that you have an idea of how we worked it, the first thing was we did a CPA grant, and I think that for the financial part of the town, that needs to be better, and I think if you all support this, it's a good idea. It needs to be better advertised as to how the CPA works. We had 1 day's notice to write a grant, and we did it. And we got $1,500. And in the past, you've seen plaques around town on some of the houses, like you can see one on the bank. Mm-hmm. What they did in the past was they were charging people them anywhere from $79 on, depending on what type of plaque you got. We wrote a grant to have the plaques made as we surveyed to give to the people so that they would have a visual history of the town. So everybody knows about the toll house, but to me the big thing in this town is the planks from Old Ironsides were milled here, and even bigger, your first Union soldiers in the Civil War came from here. And that building went down in a half a second. So we're trying to stop that. So that's what we're doing, is surveying the properties. So half of the town has been surveyed, and they put in 100 in the last survey, which was 2016. And what happens is the state comes in, they give you 3 people to interview, or 3 companies to interview, and you choose which one you're going to work with, and you have a year to bring about what you have planned. So we hope to survey on the other side of the railroad, up to, going up south and down towards the circle, because those are areas where the state says they're interested in Native American information, which we are sadly not reporting, and Camp Alice Carlton, that's right there. So they asked, Camp Alice Carlton's committee asked me to come in and talk because I did the research on the McCarthy farm in Rockland, and that's been saved as open space. So that whole area had Indian activity, and there are 81 streams, so there's water up on those hills. And there are 3 wells between Beach Hill and Rye Hill, and those wells have been tested twice a year, every year, for the past 25 years. And if you go back into the history of those areas, every single deed had water rights. So this is something the town should be watching, because water is going to be such a severe problem for us. at any rate, so we're hoping to get plaques on the houses around the parks, in the center of town. And this is another thing that's helpful. When the middle school is going in, the architects contacted us because the state has to have a letter from us saying that there was no history on that property or your money doesn't go through. So the Historic Commission is a serious, it's not a society, and luckily they seem to be moving forward with this society and John Campbell's collection, which is a really good collection. So it's been preserved. We were able to preserve all the memorabilia from Peaceful Meadows. So that's all been safely stored, and if they get the museum up and running, that's great. I tend to think that we will stay here because we are a town board. So, and that's how we plan to spend the next year. And at the same time, one of our members is going through all of the state grants. And one of the things that once we get the houses registered, everybody thinks, well, gee, now the Historic Commission can tell us that we can't paint our house. That's not what we do. That's Lexington, maybe. But what we do is there are two places where we have a grant that we know is out there that we can go after that money to preserve properties. One is at Peaceful Meadows, and that is the silo. And the other one is the Regal building where the bricks came down. And they have, if your buildings are registered, and both of those buildings are not only on the state but the national register, so we can go after money to preserve those buildings, and we plan to do that. So we hope to be a money making, which is why I was very pleased that you asked.
Excellent.
I don't know that we'll always be that successful, but we're going to try.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
that's definitely a learning
It's a good
experience.
time.
Awesome, huh?
Tap into your wealth of knowledge, Kathleen.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, Marley, I came from the Whitman Middle School Building Committee meeting to the Selectmen's meeting, and in the course of reading a significant document, the Whitman Historical and it said Society identified Goulding Springs Bottling Company on Corthell Ave as of significance, and it overlapped with the 17 Corthell Ave, and the middle school and the Goulding Springs Bottling Company coexisted. And it was just so fun between reading all of these numbers and reading a little bit of history of Whitman to appreciate the efforts that, and you signed the letter, saying,
It's a commission. It'll take. When I first came here, I went to a meeting when they were talking about the museum, and I brought it up. They televised it, that there's a huge difference between a society and a commission, and it's great when they work together. But we've talked to the architects, and we're going to be collaborating with them because we have all the original signs. We have pictures of all the people that worked at the plant.
Yes.
We tracked all of the water through there. We walked the property. We took pictures of it. And Mr. Joubert is going to, if he is well enough, he's going to be the first elder person. We have 7 of them who are in their 90s who are willing to come forward and talk to us. And he was the one who explained to us that the bottling plant was on stilts.
wow.
Because it was so that land, but the land is right 17 Corthell as you come in, and this is how when you get into the history of towns you think, and now that I'm going to tell you something because you'll never get past it. You turn left to go on Corthell, and did you ever notice that there's a triple decker to the left, and it doesn't fit in on the street? They built it for the people who worked in the plant, and every time I drove in there I was like, why is that there? Because I've done a lot of work in Dorchester. Why is that there? And then when the plant came up, then I said, it has to be right across the street. And that's exactly where
You
it was.
just never know
Company house.
the impact that a commission like Historical Commission has on something as big as this middle school
Right.
building. It's like, thank you for doing the work that you do, and
Thanks.
thank you for signing off on the letter saying that.
Oh, yeah. No,
Building.
we researched it, I think, for a couple of weeks. But Mary Joyce, who's one of our newer members, is spending a lot of time looking at all of the different grants that they have so that we can keep reaching into the grants. It's a lot of work to do them, but it will be a lot of work to bring this one to completion. So thank you.
Let us know when you're ready for the stuff, because I think I told you I have a root beer bottle that was bottled there.
Yeah, we have bottles, we have boxes.
Can we get the money to do grants? for the town.
That would be nice, yeah.
Pay for it. Pay for it.
Well, I think that they have done that in the past, but and I do think Camp Alice Carlton this past week they decided to keep it at open space, but they brought in the Wetlands Trust. And your new assessor was the one who recommended the Wetlands Trust, and I had done some work with them at McCarthy Farm. Scott McFadden came in, and he's got money for that. So your smaller committees and commissions should be able to bring in money to help with a lot of this stuff, as long as they're willing to do the writing. And we're trying to keep our commission at full personnel,
Sure.
so that we can keep going after them.
So, Molly, one of the things you talk about streams and water rights and that type of thing, I think of the collaboration between you and, say, the Conservation Commission. Do you meet with them regularly? Or?
I haven't, but I want to. As a matter of fact, Rosemary had mentioned one of the people, because there's also Harding Pond should be a vernal pool. We now have river otter in there. I live on Priscilla, and we have river otter. Unfortunately, the DPW has to come down about once a month and break down the beaver dams.
Sure.
But we have spotted salamander, all kinds of things, and that should have trails. It should be open space. So eventually, hopefully, I do think we should be collaborating, and I do think we should be collaborating with the water department.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because that property, the fact that you can go back to pre-revolution and find deeds that say there was a brick plant up there, and supposedly all the bricks for this building came from McCarthy Farm. But we haven't been able to track that. I do know it was Wallace Brick Farm that did it, but they all said the brick farm. But all the deeds up on Beach Hill, every single one of them had water rights, whether it was father to son or anything else. So there's a lot of water there.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking the time to come
Awesome.
in.
You're welcome.
Been very enlightening. All right.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
The old Ironsides, huh?
No, I'm just saying, that's where I said we've got to find a different way to
Okay.
do this.
Are you Adam?
No, that is not Adam, that's Bitsy.
Who's up next?
Well, we have Adam. Adam
wanna
Somerville
play-
is
you wanna
the
play
chair
Adam?
of the planning board. Do we have anybody else here?
I'll be Adam.
I'm not here coming.
Okay.
Is Vincy part of the planning board?
No, he is the fire union.
Oh,
He is-
So Adam Somerville is the chair of the planning board. He did say that he was going to come, but he might just not be here yet. And then the other one was,
Sandy Cortez. Was that?
yeah, Sandy Cortez.
Which I wish they met, because I called them to go and have a martini together.
Yeah. So I think it's great that they're going to do some
I
collaboration.
think they
you know.
would really like each other.
What's her
Even the
budget?
planning board.
What's her budget?
$500.
$500. And I was.
Which is amazing.
Did anybody see if it was cut in the new budget? Is it
no,
cut?
she's recommended for $500.
Thank God.
I checked.
She came.
What number are the other departments, so I can pour through this?
So Conservation Commission, I believe, is on the fourth page, maybe.
Does it have department number? Like Council on Aging is Department 25.
Yeah, it's
I have conservation page.
yeah, it's on page 3 of this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do have a department number.
I'm sure it does, that's something.
It's the far left column, the one.
Looks like 11.
Yes, so,
Yes.
thank you, Bill.
Oh, Department 11,
Yep.
yeah.
11, council aging is 25.
Planning is- So I don't have to get new pages.
Yep. So the planning board has a budget of $3,000.
Since Mary Beth has not been in this, or the town administrator has not been in these meetings at all year long, is there anybody that's able, sitting down and having conversations, or is this such a disconnected committee with the town administrator? I mean, are they, how often are we speaking, or?
Well, I think our meetings do overlap with Board of Selectmen meetings, right? So she hasn't been available, but
We
they
should
meet,
have-
obviously.
We've had meetings off, where we've met on off dates, and there hasn't been.
I certainly
available.
suspect as we get a copy of the warrant, she'll be in here to bring back up and answer questions. I don't want to say that that's not going to happen.
We're budgeting reactionarily. We are budgeting 1 year at a time. and we're not looking at 5 years, and that's a problem. That's a
Well,
problem.
we talked about that at the beginning of the meeting. We have a lot of work to do. I agree, right? We're not going to do it in 4 weeks. I can tell you that.
I understand, but beginning of the year, we spoke up, we had talked about numbers shifting for the vocational busing, and I'm going to say this again. There are number thresholds in which that you can go back to the commissioner and say, this is too outrageous, this doesn't, and we don't pay for 1 or 2 or small amounts, thresholds, that we won't pay those things, and the commissioner can relieve you of that. Those are things that can be done.
So let me just say that
Has that been communicated with the town?
every time there's a question to bring to town administrator, I bring it.
Okay,
I'm going to bring that question, right?
thank you.
In the absence of her presence, that's been our, what we've been doing. So your question specifically, follow-up item, is
There are threshold numbers in which you are allowed to go to the commissioner. If the busing threshold amount for a small amount of students for non-regionalized schools, and the commissioner can relieve you of that responsibility. Say you don't have to pay that, or determine a reasonable amount if it exceeds a reasonable amount. So see if she can review, and I think I
I
said.
remember there was one that was an outlandish amount of money to transport one student,
Yes,
right?
and whether if the state absorbs it or not, I'm not sure, but it
And
does
relief
not come out
is
of the
from
levy.
Commissioner of Revenue?
The Commissioner of Education is, I believe, is who does it. Kathy, I sent you something on that.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it, it's too early to.
No, yeah.
What I found when I was looking at vocational stuff is there is one student whose transportation costs are $19,000, which is absurd. We should buy the car for the family and say, take your kid to school. Or you
I
go.
will hire you a teacher.
Right.
Be at your
I'll take the 19,000 drive them. I'll take 10,000 drive them.
Towns do not have to pay for transporting a child if the cost of transporting the child is, I'm going to make the number up, 3 times the average cost of transporting a child in the school.
Right.
And it only costs about $2,000 per child to transport them. So $19,000.
Well beyond that.
Would be Commissioner
There are
call.
places but this is the little picture for the big picture.
But this
There are
is what we-
places in this budget that definitely need to be attacked.
Yes, and this is stuff we said early on, and with that big disconnect, there are a lot of things that we said early on, and with the big disconnect between not having the communication between the selectmen, the select board, and here, they haven't been touched. And we're talking about firemen, and we're not talking about, all these disconnects. It's crazy.
As you say, disconnects. I mean, is it just a matter of this is stuff that some of us are aware of, and is it a matter of as we communicate with the select board and the TA, hey, did you know about this? And if hopefully they would know about this, and if you can act on it.
It would be sad if they listened to our meetings just to critique what we say,
Right.
and not
Or how
take the
we say it.
material,
Or how we say it, yeah.
and not take the material that we give them
'Cause it's-
and work with that.
Yeah, let me finish. If it's pretty obvious over the last 3 or 4 years, whatever, that there's been a lot of good information that's come out of this committee, people on this committee, and there's been a lot of money saved on stuff that wasn't looked at before. A lot of money.
I would say that's an understatement, yeah.
So-
But let's use last week for an example. We had Don Byers come deliver some information about a very viable,
Grant program.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sum of money. And the selectman took the information, although he left prematurely. He did follow it up with an email to say that if there are other things that you have to bring up, please forward them. So I think we're communicating them, but are they really getting to where they need to end up is the problem, right? So, but I have one more thing to say about that. Is the strategic plan is really a good vehicle to use because we spent a lot of time with that. We spent money on bringing in somebody to give us an outline for a strategic plan. We have recommendations. We have things that we're supposed to be doing. These all fit in those categories. You know what I mean? So whether it's maybe it's time to reconvene the strategic planning committee and all the stakeholders that came together. Go ahead.
Department of Revenue has a technical audit. If we want to review certain aspects, we can call the Department of Revenue and request a technical audit, particularly on revenue and how we can maximize that. Plimpton did one in 2015. Talks about how to stabilize, utilize resources.
All right, so I'll bring that one up too. Department of Revenue, they pay for a technical audit?
I believe that they have to request it, and I'm pretty sure that it doesn't cost, or it costs just a very small amount. I do have questions of audits that are ordered and strategically designed by the people that you're auditing. I think an audit that comes in from the Department of Revenue, who specializes in pulling in revenue, on how you're taking in revenue, might be, without you critiquing how you want to take in revenue, is probably the best way to get
Might give you a real sense of
what's available. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to the agenda, and I just want to give an opportunity for a public forum. Is there something you want to bring up? Okay, thank you.
West Agenda Committee, right?
We do have a vacancy.
Oh yeah, he's a Hansonite.
All right, so nobody out there for board meeting, okay. All right, so why don't we move down our agenda and take a look at the meeting minutes. Everybody has a copy of and these ones got overlooked, it's my fault. Elizabeth sent these out quite a few weeks ago, actually 3 days after the meeting. She had the meeting minutes sent over. I did forward them, but we never acted on them. That's why we're doing February 27th. We actually already did the subsequent meeting to this and approved it a couple of weeks ago. So we're looking at page 677. Does everybody have a copy? So the only thing on page 677 that I noticed was Justin Casanova Davis. He was absent, as he has been since. Does it say absent? Absent.
Yeah.
Sorry. He's still absent.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else, anything on page 677? Okay. We'll move on to, again, so let's talk about like what we're discussing here. On the second page, so I think this was a meeting where we didn't have any budget meetings. We were just kind of catching up on various.
Do we have 677? I want to correct. Chapter 90, STIP.
What paragraph?
Under new business, I think. Are we on 677, right?
Is it 3/4 of the way down the page? 7/8, 5/8?
It's about
What page are you on?
677.
77.
5 lines up from the bottom. It says, Conley asked why none of the requests from the DPW are going through the Chapter 90 STIP STIPS program are eligible items. Yeah. I think.
Oh, you want to add something there?
No, just it wasn't Chapter 90. Sometimes people confuse Chapter 90 formula program with their grant program. So we're not seeing anything in the STIP program. The streets, the STIP. It's basically the grant program. When we're looking at what we've applied for, we're not seeing.
Safe transportation.
That was street. Yeah, street transportation improvement program. STIP. That's correct. We're not seeing anything, and we weren't seeing it. And like we said earlier, we haven't seen anything for a long time in that particular program. And that's a program that people regularly use.
Okay, so let's get back to how you want to see the sentence.
I'd just say Chapter 90 STIP.
Oh, so add it afterwards. But you're really going to need to use. You can't have a pronoun without an antecedent, right?
Put it in parentheses.
Well,
Thank you,
yeah.
Professor.
Should it be which are eligible items as opposed to they are eligible items?
Sure, if you really want
We
to
want to
go.
be grammatically correct.
Yes, we do.
So let's go
It's not a lot
for,
of money to get that to.
do you know what the STIP is?
No, but I'm gonna put it in parentheses and put STIP after chapter 90.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, make sure it's WITCH, so we have some fun later on.
Have something to laugh about tonight. We've been working so hard for so long.
All right, so anything else then back on page 677 other than that? All right, very good. Thank you, Rosemary. Page 678. So we're talking about, I think we're talking about the
Capital Committee.
special legislation on the second paragraph, right? Oh, we're talking about capital committee.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay, yeah, then we're talking about capital committee there. Then we talked a little bit about the override. And we'll leave it to school override because it was brought up that way at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, right?
Yes.
So we can't really correct that. And then further talking about the implications of an override to the bottom of the page where we talk about old business items and the various committees, ending with the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District Agreement Amendment Committee. Anybody have anything they need to change on that page, 678? Okay, 679, talking about Middle School Building Committee, then the Public Works Department Building Committee. Near the bottom of that paragraph, I just wanted to change the sentence that starts with, Mr. Anderson stated it normally goes through 3 readings at the Senate to see if there is any opposition, which there has been none so far, and then goes for a vote. So I'd like to change the third and fourth word where it says stated it
Where are we?
at the bottom of Public Works Department Building Committee report.
Okay, yep.
So instead of writing stated it, take that out and write, has been advised by Senator Brady that. And then it goes on, normally goes through 3, take out the word 3 and write multiple. And then you can continue readings at the Senate and then the House, add that. And then strike which there has been none so far. So I'll read the sentence as I'm proposing it. Mr. Anderson stated,
No.
Mr. Anderson has been advised by Senator Brady that normally it goes through multiple readings at the Senate and then the House to see if there's any opposition. And then it goes to a vote followed by a trip to the governor's desk. So you strike it out that other part. You got it? Sorry for that. That was pretty complicated. Okay. Does anybody have anything else on page 679? We're talking about fiscal 25 update, where we talked about the MBT Communities Act, other business, the communication we got from Norfolk County Aggie about the tuition rates, and then at the bottom of the page, there was a motion to adjourn. Anybody got anything else? Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to accept the February 27th, 2024 meeting minutes as amended.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? All right. Opposed? Abstained? 1 abstain.
I was not here.
Thank you, Mike. Oh, just forgot, we're supposed to call John Noon.
Oh, no, Miss John, I love him.
Something from John saying, could you please,
Call me.
no, he didn't say that.
Thank God it didn't say that.
No,
What's the electronic
he
version?
wants the electronic version of Mary Beth's doomsday budget.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
That's John. You know it's John.
Didn't even have to read.
I'm gonna add that to the list.
Can I just add that Mary Beth's budget does not have the requests submitted to the FinCom by the department heads, and that's why there's a big difference between her increase and what we were dealing with in terms of original requests from the different departments. Not a criticism, just a statement of fact.
Yep.
Okay. Did you want to bring anything up?
I'm Adam Summer.
Adam is here.
It's
Come on in. Sorry we
Right.
left you
We were
waiting.
going to have somebody
That's
pretend
okay.
to be you, and you would have given better news, it sounds like.
Have a chair right
That's okay. I'll just say I have nothing to present. I just was
No,
invited, so I
have a
wanted
seat
to come and say hello.
Because anything that pertains or could impact finances, even if it's not your budget, is part of the purview. And the MBTA Community Act can, as you know, in Milton, they're heavily prosecuting this, and
Yeah.
it will seriously impact our budget if
Yeah.
you don't meet those. Your original map was done really well.
Nope.
What happened?
We found out that a lot of the lots, our requirement for frontage on a lot is 100 feet. Some of the bigger lots are less than that. So now we have to go back and, if we eliminate, we're trying to get Judy Barrett on the phone. She's on vacation. And that does not leave us in a good position for town meeting.
So, just to get this,
Hold on.
Always
Garrett's group.
Let's back up for one
Yeah.
second. I'm gonna go around the board and introduce the committees.
Oh, yeah,
Adam
that's true.
first,
Yeah.
please. Go ahead.
we were mouthing
How are you?
Mike Warner.
Kathleen O'Tina.
Al Cafferty.
Chuck Colby.
And I'm Rick Anderson.
I've seen you all at town meeting.
It's great. It's great to have you here. I'm really glad. I mean, there's a lot on your plate right now,
Yes.
obviously. So, typically we have budget managers come in and go over their budgets, and then we kind of open it up to questions. So, really informal.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm really glad you came. Rosemary, we'll start with you.
Okay,
Okay.
we got a grant to pay for the barracks group.
Yep.
So that they applied, and they got paid
Yep.
to apply and create a zone.
Yep.
And you're saying that zone did not work.
So the way I understand it, it's not their job to go and look at frontage of every lot that we put into the zone
What is their job?
to come up with the ratio numbers. That's the whole problem. So if we eliminate one of the lots that has 10 feet of frontage, not a big deal. It's the barber shop on the corner of South Ave down there. Small lot, not going to impact anything. The other one up on the corner of Industrial Ave is a 5 or 6 acre lot, but the only access is 30-foot road. So our frontage requirements are 100 feet. So that if we put this to to the state the way it is, it's going to get rejected
Okay.
because they will automatically eliminate every lot under 100 feet. So we were requested by her to reduce it to 0 feet, and that's not going to happen because John Goldrose, and that's going to open up a whole can of worms. Yeah. Now somebody's just going to come in and be like, oh, I'm going to build a 4-family right here with a walkway.
Adam, who's her?
Judy Barrett, I'm sorry.
Judy Barrett.
Yes.
Thank you.
So even backing up a bit further, we are talking about the MBTA community.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. The high density housing.
So, I mean, for the uninitiated, I mean, this is a big deal for the town. It's a big
Yep.
deal for every town that's in the vicinity of public transportation.
Yep.
So it's very clear from the governor that there is a carrot and a stick associated with this legislation. So I think it's important that you're taking the time to do due diligence with it. And I know you have a hearing coming up on
We
April
do.
8th.
That's why we're hoping she was supposed to be on the Zoom with us tonight, but she's on vacation. So we can't. Some of the board members are uncomfortable with presenting it at our special meeting hearing the way it is.
So do you think the hearing's going to get rescheduled?
We're not going to reschedule our hearing on the 8th or 9th, whatever. It's on
No.
the 8th, yes.
Now, the lots can be expanded, can't they?
If somebody has to purchase that lot to expand it, if we send it to the town, to the state, as it is now, with 100-foot we're under our bylaws.
Yeah.
Everything is under 100 feet is going to be eliminated, and our ratios will not meet the state requirements.
Because they don't match our personal bylaws.
Yes. So we
Okay.
can, in the overlay district, reduce that to anything we want in the overlay district only.
Yes.
But her request was to reduce to 0, and that opens up a lot of.
Okay, could you find a medium between?
That's what we're working on right now.
A medium between.
So we're trying to make it 50 feet, which would include that big lot of
Within
industrial.
the overlay. And you cannot do that before town meeting, and just,
We did not want to go to. We did not want to go to the public hearing and ask everybody in all their opinions on something that we're going to have to alter, possibly in a week
You want to have the final version before you bring
for
it
the
to
town, right? For the public hearing.
oh, so for the public hearing.
And she doesn't come back from vacation till the day of the public hearing.
But do you need her to do that?
We do. We have no way of minusing this lot, adding this lot. If we knew 5 acres was the
So we're
problem,
not
we could add 5 acres over here.
You're not minusing the lot, you're minusing the footage.
I don't know that we need to have a real comprehensive discussion about
Yeah. I'm just trying to explain it the best I can.
I
No,
appreciate
We're
it.
finance-
Well, we know that Mary,
Yeah.
This is what.
Rosemary has definitely been putting in a lot of
Yeah.
time on this as well. So
Right. We know there's a financial impact.
Yeah.
That's why the finance committee
Yeah,
is
Yep.
interested.
Yep.
However, we certainly have a limited amount.
Thank you, Rick.
But even if it doesn't make this town.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going.
Ultimately, we have had a financial expense already.
Yes.
For not meeting this.
And what
Here
has
we're
that
talking
been?
about an override and money that regularly would have been paid for Stetson Drive and others are taking away from departments like fire, police, schools, because we have failed to meet this. If there is a way, it should be done in an urgent way. It should have already been done at this point. And I know you agree with me because
Yep.
we've had these conversations
Yep.
and I know we're on the same page. I don't know what the delays were. And even in the beginning, when the original plans were, some of these lots were far beyond 1.5 miles. The state would never have accepted
Right.
those. Never.
Yep.
So, and that was the Barrett's group, I believe, that, or somebody
Yep.
had put that through.
Well, the person who was in control of it, I guess
The expense to this town
Yep.
is one we cannot afford. And right now, we're already talking about people's jobs, a stripped down budget, compounded with not meeting this would be terrible and
Yep.
devastating. We would have to pull back on other supports that we have for seniors right now, and this is a nightmare.
we're going to meet the state deadline, which is December.
Okay.
That's
Thank
not a
you
problem.
so much.
That is not a problem. We just don't. The only problem we're having is that if we don't have the right information, we can't. We don't want to make a zoning change amendment at town meeting.
Okay,
That's our problem. But we're going to hold our public hearing.
thank you.
We're going to take everybody's into a
You
thing.
are on the same page.
Yeah,
I
oh,
know you
absolutely.
and I are on the same
You know.
page, and I know there are a lot of other factors involved that kind of stump all this up, and essentially I'm educating the public to this right now when we're talking
Yep.
about this. This will have been unreasonable to have gone this long.
Yep.
If we're just meeting that deadline.
No, we'll meet the deadline with plenty of time. We might have to have a special town meeting in the fall.
Just a clarification, this is not just legislation, this is law.
Yeah.
This is a law.
Milton's going through a lot of legal actions.
And Milton
because they
can afford
declined
it. Milton can afford it.
So, yeah.
There are
Yes.
options, even in the plan that we see, there are options. Rick Anderson could probably tell you more about different things because he's a builder, but there are options with 40 Rs and 40Ss
Yep.
that give money back to the schools
Yep.
when people move in. Ultimately, people are moving here.
Yep.
That's going to be good for businesses, but I know a lot of people don't like change. We can't.
well, and regardless, doesn't this just allows for the rezoning, and then somebody has to come and build.
No, they
You know?
will.
Right, it's just,
They
yeah,
will.
it's not so much
Well, yeah,
rezoning,
they will,
we're not
but you-
rezoning,
yeah.
we're
This is
just
so much money.
overlaying
Overlaying.
over a lot of the industrial areas in town
Yep.
and making that,
You did a
As
great
of
job.
yeah, that they could
Zoning-
do that if they wanted to.
The zoning.
So you're looking at a puzzle. You got a puzzle, and you are looking at, all right, so how do we change this a little bit to allow
We were given, when we,
this multi-family type
when we
house?
first given this, we were given A, B, and C proposals. We narrowed A, B, and C down to one, then adjusted it again, and then the person who was in charge of everything, no idea what happened. He or she just disappeared.
The proposal that you
Somebody
essentially.
within town or the state?
No, from Barrett Group.
Hold on, we got Kathleen, then we got Mike.
No, I'm just pointing
I
that
have just a simple question,
Sure.
Adam, and that is, you said we may need a special town meeting to do what?
We might have to have a fall town meeting for this,
To change
To
the zoning.
accept
to
it?
accept it.
To accept it?
Yes, if we do not make May. And if we don't do that in the fall, we will not meet December. Because the state, what we want to do now is if we don't make it in April, whatever proposal we come up with has to go to the state first and they're 90 days back.
So you could
Okay.
get it to them and it might not be back in
It
time.
might not, right, but if we still could put this through tonight, and they could come back in 90 days and say, yeah, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
We have no idea, no way of knowing. So we're going on everything that Barrett Group tells us.
And Barrett Group is,
Paid.
Yeah, I don't know who, I don't want to say who hired them, I don't know how
doesn't
that.
matter. What?
Yeah.
Barrett Group is
Is the
who?
the firm that was hired to do all the maps and all the
Okay.
stuff for us, yes.
All right.
They're out of Bridge-
I
like
thought
Bridge-
you were talking about the restaurant group.
No, I'm sorry.
consulting firm.
But
Yes, consulting firm, perfect word.
which
Was it-
somebody paid, the town has paid.
The Barracks Group comes out of Bridgewater, Mass, if I'm correct, and they are like the developers in Bridgewater, essentially. They're well known for developing in Bridgewater, which I think maybe whoever hired them should have looked at how are they doing it in Bridgewater, right? Have they met those requirements? But additionally, I want to say thank you. The maps that you came up with. I'm going to say it wasn't the Barrett's Group who came up with the final really great map that considered the traffic
Yep.
coming in and out, that considered utilization of land that is, used in ways that are dangerous right now in the back, and really preserved the entire character while adding extra people to the town was wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
You did a great job.
And
Thank you.
so did the town pay the Barrett Group? Is this town
A
funding?
grant, and I think they're looking for a second grant for them.
They,
I think Mr. Evans.
Yeah, I was going to say, Justin could answer that stuff better than I could. I just get what's put in front of me.
Okay.
So I
So
don't know
it wasn't
exactly
money
where
out of the
it comes
general
from.
fund.
I don't know if any money came out of the general fund. I know some of it was paid for, at least partially paid for, or fully paid for by a grant. I'm unaware.
And if you're doing the work, why don't we get them money back from them?
I think it was Mr. Gold.
John Goldrosen was a big help on this and
He
helping
really
us.
came in and
He knows the zones.
He
better.
does, yeah.
and
He's been,
is.
he's been here a long
came
time.
in and
Yeah.
like some of these are these allow for brownfield cleanup grants. These allow for all kinds of the people who are going to build are going to get a ton of money to build. They really want this housing, so people are going to build. But in the interim, it's taken spaces that we probably have to police, or the fire have to
Yeah,
go there, that are dangerous.
that you have to
and
worry
they're
about.
turning it into something vitalizing. These same spaces are spaces that really don't affect traffic. They're coming out of the Rotary at other places, not through the downtown. It was, I was blown
So that's
away
where
when
it's
I
good
saw
to
it.
have a
I
good
didn't even
plan.
think about
Yeah.
what they had pulled
And
together.
a lot of these go to the zoning board, not to the planning board. So I invited him to come in to help us
You did a
because
great
these
job.
are his decisions. They're going to have to be made after us. We
Right,
just-
right.
Yeah.
This is just our job for the town.
That was-
Buildings we talking
High density housing, so you're talking 15 to 20 units per acre,
Yeah, I think
per
that's,
acre?
up to 40 feet high.
yeah, a minimum of 15.8. I
So
think.
Some minimum, no, it doesn't have to be a minimum, but I think it's a maximum.
It just had anything to do with
I think the
section.
maximum is 15.
It just
I don't want to say something I
Everything with
don't know.
section 8?
Maybe it's-
No, nope. It just it does not have to be affordable. It doesn't have to be Section 8 or 40R, 40S.
What about
It just
40B?
has to. I don't know. I don't want to say something I don't know. I have no problem saying I don't know.
Okay.
So let me just say one thing. Rosemary made it clear. The need for housing is clear. This
Yep.
is a mandate
Yeah.
from the governor. Right?
Yes.
This is something that, we have, we need help. And I use this phrase with Rosemary. So we need help with that economic engine, right? And at this point, this is the transmission,
Yep.
right?
And
This is some money that's going to revitalize an area of town that
That's
definitely needs
been
to be up,
neglected.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And maybe pay for some of the cleanup.
But there's
Without
huge
that.
amount of additional revenue that are going to be part of this.
Yes.
And there is penalties if we don't comply.
Right.
That's the
So,
whole thing. If we don't
you-
make it in December,
Right.
and we didn't really get this, I don't think, until maybe September.
Yeah.
This has been going on for years. I
Right.
think I ran my whole campaign on it.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago.
I'm just saying from the first I heard of it from Barrett Group and everything, it was maybe August or September.
That's scary.
So
The need is real. I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah, it
Thank
sounds
you.
like,
I know I'll be at the meeting on the 8th, so if there's anything you need specifically from the Finance Committee,
No.
please reach out.
hopefully I won't be as nervous as I was the marijuana meeting. I was chairman for 3 weeks. They're like, yeah, go talk to
By the way, to answer your question, where's the revenue for that? There's tens of millions of dollars coming in for that.
No state license yet, as far as I know. It's a pretty good process.
Yeah.
So last I heard, there was a couple of locations, but nothing.
that's all. It's
Yeah,
just, there's nothing really.
It's all state.
We
it's
changed
in
the zoning for
state
that, right?
licensing.
We
Yes.
changed the zoning for that. We
Yeah.
have no revenue.
Well, we haven't changed any zoning yet. We just changed the bylaw so it would be acceptable. So
I thought that it's coming in through the state, and then what they're reimbursing back was just what additional traffic. It really wasn't.
It's really
it was
fun.
sales revenue
Yeah.
that we would see, I believe.
Yeah.
We're getting on the train very
So if we
late.
have
Yeah,
lots
the
of people
train-
to buy
we're-
marijuana,
we're
we'll
chasing
do
the
better.
caboose.
No more lines in Brockton outside of the dispensary.
We're chasing the caboose.
All right, Adam.
Should've done
Does
it.
anybody else have any other questions for Adam? We appreciate. We didn't expect you to come
Thanks,
up,
Adam.
stay so long.
That's all right.
Thanks a lot, Adam. I appreciate
Yes.
it.
How do you spell your last name?
Just like the city, Somerville. SOMERVILLE.
Oh, okay.
All right.
All right, Adam.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Nice to meet everyone.
Take care, Adam.
Have a good night.
Thank you for your work.
That's scary.
Well, hopefully we can cross the finish line with that one.
I mean, Lexington finished theirs
This is
like 2 years ago.
No, this is what the fire chief
Well, it
is
seems
always
like
the
our
possibility
engine
just to
moves very
push back.
slowly here.
Right?
recommending.
I think people thought that they didn't have to do this.
What's missing
Right.
here.
I think
is
they
what-
said, oh, it's a law. No one's going to do anything about it. I think that's what they thought.
All right, so we don't have the planning board. They'd be here by now if we were going to meet with the planning board. So let's get into subcommittee reports so we can have everybody home at a decent hour.
I got to pick up my mother at 4 in the morning.
So we'll start with the capital committee.
We are scheduled to meet this Thursday.
Okay, any, are you meeting with the school? You talk about their capital needs?
No.
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 That's off the table?
Everybody is. If you didn't provide your documentation when we asked you to, see you next year.
Okay, fair enough.
Fair enough.
All right, so the Regional School Districts Agreement Amendment Committee?
Chris Scriven is the chair. My sense is that he's not running for re-election, so my sense is that there will not be another regional agreement committee meeting. And having shared the bad news with Laura Kemitz at the last regional committee meeting, that it was going to cost Hanson when we revitalize or we alter the transportation language, I'm not sure that Hanson's all that eager to meet again.
Right. That has to be the initial topic when it does reconvene.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Middle School Building Committee just recently met.
We met this afternoon at 4:30. It's really exciting. We are at this point under budget, and and Elizabeth Dagnall has been hired to update the website. She has already started, and it's beautiful. She's gotten rid of old information that was extraneous to the project, and she has a real vision of how this can keep the community informed. But we're under budget.
Can you give the website address here?
WMSproject.org. It hasn't changed.
I didn't say it was. I was doing it for the...
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Whitman Middle School, so WMSproject.org.
All right, excellent. Any other questions for Kathleen? All right, Public Works Department Building Committee did meet, discussion, and then a subsequent job meeting. For the first job meeting, they mobilized to the site. As I mentioned before, they were very reluctant to bring in the construction trailers because they felt that with a very limited budget and no green light letter and notice to proceed, very restrictive, they were not going to do any demolition of the existing structures. And so I brought up in the course of that meeting that there was a concerted effort that I and Rosemary took a ride to the State House, that the Finance Committee drafted a letter in support, and we do have the return receipt request that came from the governor's office, so our letter did make it to its destination. But they're really very concerned that they're ready to pull off the site. They were ready to pull off the site last week. word went back from the Senator Brady's office that it is now out of some committee and back into another session for another reading. To me, it's just a recycled process we're getting week after week. So I don't blame the contractor for not having the confidence to start demolition or to bring in office trailers or to expend any of the 1.3 million that they have for the project on anything else like other than long lead time items. That's what they should be spending the money for. Because when they finally get the green light letter, which is the expectation that this special legislation is going to be passed, then they can mobilize 100% and start demolition of the building. But right now, it's going to cost $20,000 a week for the town if we don't have a notice to proceed that includes what they need to do. And I'm just really surprised that there's not more of an education to the general public about where this stands right now. It's kind of troubling, and really it's the elephant in the room at every building committee meeting is why is there such a delay on this special legislation that was supposed to take 2 weeks and it's now dragging into its 5th month. So, Rosemary.
What other, is there is there financial exposure beyond that? Like,
Absolutely. There is significant financial exposure to
and
the
nothing
town.
would be produced by that $20,000 a week, like, or $80,000 a month.
Look at
Just a
the,
penalty.
yeah, look at also the, what the town will lose if in fact this special legislation never materializes. And the contractor packs up and goes home and we get no building and we move the DPW back into that abysmal situation, right? I mean, where are we now? We just wasted $2 million, right? And we have no building, right? So it's concerning, so.
Who's at fault? People make mistakes. So somebody made a mistake.
Yeah. It seems to me that the legislation that was a simple legislation should have gone directly to the governor's office. It languished in the House and Senate because it was submitted as a home rule petition. We talked about this last week.
Whose bright idea was that?
We have to
It's
say
a
our
rhetorical-
legislator,
Rhetorical question. You
right?
don't have to
Don't we have to say our legislator?
I just have to mention, I drilled everybody very aggressively. Was this a home rule petition in the beginning? And nobody defined that. I asked them, is this a home rule petition? And it was not defined, and we did not figure out that it was, find out it was a home rule petition until we were sitting at the senator's office, and he said, this home rule petition should have never.
And then they mentioned Article 89 was the article, if you recall, when we were in Senator Brady's office, and the word came back from the chambers that it was off the table because it was submitted wrong.
So there was no opportunity for the finance or anyone on the finance committee to review any of those laws or anything and how that might impact, because it was not being communicated that this was a home rule petition, even though we asked directly, is this a home rule petition?
Not really
Some
sure. So your answer is just as vague as the answers we're getting about where the legislation
That's
stands
fine.
today. So
That's fine.
I'm sure history will be.
People make mistakes. Mistakes don't happen because of molecules in the air colliding.
Be sure.
People make mistakes.
Right.
Someone should be identified as responsible for making a big mistake.
And I think this should be dragged out in the sunlight because you have taxpayers who supported this at both the town meeting last year and at the ballot box.
Yeah.
And they think we're building a building, and we're not. The contractor has left the site.
I think it should be dragged up because it's going to cost us lots of money to get nothing.
Oh, that's where we come in, right? Elizabeth?
What do you think is the best course of action to drag it out into the sunlight so that the taxpayers see it? Because I don't feel like more than 13 people that reside in this building will actually listen to this recording.
Right.
So what is the finance committee?
What does the senator say? I mean, is he going to help us out with it?
That we just get the same
I get all the
thing.
text messages.
It's in the legislative process. I think I've heard that phrase
What was
400 times.
Well, you're the
was the
chairman.
last email?
Reach out to the. You have to reach out to the press. You're the chairman.
Well,
What-
maybe
it's
that's
not in the
what
senator's
Elizabeth
office.
Savin,
It
was that where you were
wasn't
headed?
filed with the senator.
Yeah.
looking to
Yeah.
find out, like,
Yeah.
what do you feel as a committee is the best avenue to take to get this out in front of?
It wasn't filed with the senator. The senator is the only one really aggressively communicating with us. It was filed with the state rep, and my personal experience is it's been in the House, it's been danced around with, and I think the senator is the only one communicating with us.
Well, if you recall, we had Sean Kane in here opposing our plan to send this letter to the governor's office. I think he categorized it as a sensitive issue, and I think it has to do with the exposure of our state rep, Allison Sullivan Almeida, is going to be called out for filing this incorrectly, right? If you're looking for a smoking gun,
Yep.
if someone's saying it's a sensitive issue, I'm saying it's an issue that should be well publicized. So I will bring it to the attention of the town administrator.
So was
find
it
out.
Allison Sullivan who filed it incorrectly, or was it the town?
I don't know.
Just so that we're not
I don't know.
slandering anybody.
I need to find out.
The $20,000 a week that the town's gonna be left with, and the fact is that, what's that gonna be, how much?
Don't we have
a month?
insurance? Don't we have insurance on these things?
We have builder's risk insurance, yes.
We have builder's risk insurance, so we should look to file that so that we can minimize any impact.
Well, this isn't us to do. This is not the finance committee's
But
job.
that it is our job to recommend that this is not something that's pulled from our levy and away from an additional.
This is something to communicate with the select board and the TA.
It's on my list. So
There you go.
your answer is I will bring it to attention and we'll find out what their plan is for
Thank you.
public announcement.
You start talking about how much money's going down the drain, somebody should be held accountable and even look at the possibility, can we sue anybody to get our money back
You know something? We have never.
as a town?
We've never addressed $4.5 million diverting over to another town under an illegal vote. An illegal vote. It was not legal. It's not made legal by another piece of legislation. We've never addressed that. That there's $4.5 million. The law requires everybody on the committee to have vote to do a different assessment. It requires the vote to choose to do something other than the statutory. And if it's not done that way, it's automatically statutory. So technically, Hanson owes us $4.5 million because the statutory is the
I
statute.
don't know
We
if
don't
this is
have
the
any
year.
problems anymore.
Yeah, we don't have any problems. Exactly.
All right.
I'm sorry, you owe us money.
Let's get back on the rails.
My mother paid for dinner now for that every time we go out.
All right. So with respect to the audit, we're still getting that it's on hold.
It's exasperating,
Yeah.
yes.
Fiscal 25 budget. Anybody else want to chime in? I think we've covered that pretty extensively.
Stopped whinnying a while ago, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Communications, the only communication, as I said, from the postmaster, that we got confirmation that our letter went to the governor's office. Town administrator updates, you will be provided with a multitude of them by the next meeting. I've written down all your questions. If you have additional questions, call me or come to my house now, as Rosemary is now doing.
I don't want to waste my minutes anymore.
Shut your lights off, Rick. Lock your doors.
I gotta make coffee.
Can't lock his doors.
The doors don't have locks.
He's got an attack cat.
I was gonna say, get the dog.
All right, so we have 4 meetings left, just so you know. April 2nd is next week, so April 23rd is our last meeting. So that's concerning. Back to
Very,
Mike's
very concerning.
question. When do we start doing what we need to do? I'm going to ask for at least a warrant for next week, but I don't know if we're going to get it.
I have a question.
Ask for it.
And it's something that I wanted to bring up before we kind of close, is we keep talking about hold harmless, right? And essentially, when hold harmless is broken out, it is broken out by town, right? The hold harmless. And I don't know how much, it's my understanding that it's primarily Hanson. And Hanson, I haven't heard anything about the MBTA Community Act commitments and the commitments to have housing built to include families. So if they're participating in something that's pulling back from Whitman's by not building in a way, that's the law tells you to, and not building to incorporate children into their town, they're effectively hurting Whitman's ability to fund education.
Because it's affecting enrollment.
It's infecting enrollment.
Enrollment is going.
Yeah, they knocked
Affecting,
down an
infecting.
entire school. And McQuan was knocked down without having to replace it. Think about that. Think about how, I mean,
They
that.
still owe $500,000 for HVAC on the school that they're knocking down.
I know. But I mean, just think about that. It's they have to participate in having a diverse community like we do, and meet those rules and regulations for MBTA.
All right, Mike, did you have something?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything under go to the order? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? All right. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for attending.
Yeah.